Have you ever been getting ready to take off and then hear this?
Tulahoma traffic, jumpers away over the field, 12,000 below. Please use caution in the vicinity of Tulahoma for parachute activity. Do not.
It was in that moment that I realized I don't know where these skydivers are going to go or how fast they're going to get there. Today, we're going to talk with my friend AJ, who is a skydiving instructor with over 3,000 jumps, who enlightened me on some skydiving operations that I had no clue about. My name is Saders, and I'm an IFR-rated private pilot sharing my experiences flying and learning everything aviation. I don't remember from my private pilot training days having an extensive amount of coverage in what to do when using caution around skydivers. We certainly had to know what the parachute symbol meant on our VFR charts, but how do I use caution around skydivers when I don't necessarily know what they are about to do, other than falling from the sky? I spent 90 minutes on the call with AJ, and it was really fascinating. I've whittled it down to these 5 points that I found the most interesting. Hopefully you do as well. So let's jump in. Starting us off at number 1, what altitudes do skydivers like to jump at? These are interesting numbers. When you hear AJ rattle them off, keep in mind that these are AGL. Skydivers don't really go by MSLs. They really care about 0 being the ground. So all of these altitudes are going to be above ground level.
13.5 is a number you're going to hear a lot, and that's out of a turbine aircraft. And that gives you about a minute in a tandem free fall. On a flat flyer, gets 75 seconds. 13.5. It's a good balance between the cost effectiveness of the load and all that, the time that the skydivers want in free fall. Now, 13.5 out of a piston Cessna, that's going to take a long time to get there, and they're going to burn a lot of fuel, and it's not going to be. So a Cessna is usually capped at about between 10 and 12. So you'll hear 10.5. 10.5 and that's where there's a lot of four-way competition teams that'll train from that height. Even out of a turbine aircraft in competition, they leave at 10.5 because they only need 35 seconds of working time to be judged in. So 10.5, that's another altitude. And then lower than that, out of a turbine aircraft, if you want a low pass, most drop zones will allow you to get out low and charge you less money so that you can just open your parachute and play with it and land and practice a landing. So we call that a hop and pop. Usually out of a turbine aircraft, they'll make the pass so that they'll be going anywhere between 4,000 and 6,000 feet when they open the door, and often still climbing. Now, at 13.5, sometimes the owner of the drop zone is flying the aircraft, and he gets clearance up to 15,000 from the center, and it's the last load of the day, and he's feeling like he's made good money, and he's going to reward these people. He'll go up to 14,000, 15,000 feet. So it all varies by the type of aircraft and your airspace. And like at Denver, when they go to 12.5, they're at 17.5. So they can't stay there longer, or else they're going to need supplemental oxygen for the climb. The law in Canada is above 12.5 for more than 30 minutes is supplemental oxygen. So we go up to 13.5 and then they're down, don't need it. But if you're going to do a high altitude jump from 18,000, 20,000 feet, you definitely will have to breathe oxygen until exit.
Number 2, how long does a skydiver remain in the air? Now, there's a lot of variables at play here, different altitudes, tandem versus single, the size of the parachute, when they deploy the parachute. But ultimately, the question here is, when we hear use caution, jumpers away on the radio, what duration of time do we need to continue exercising caution around that airspace?
The longest amount of time could be 20 minutes anyway. Whoa. And the shortest amount of time could be a couple of minutes. So how long is a person going to be in free fall? Let me give you the extremes of that. 3 minutes with one of those wingsuits. 3, maybe probably up to 5 minutes. Some of these guys have been able to be jumping out of a plane, and from the time exit to opening a parachute, they get that much free fall with a special thing. Okay. Sure. Normal skydiving, jumping out flat from 13.5, you get just over a minute. 75 seconds is what I love.
Free fall.
A free fall. That's a regular skydiver by themselves, opening at about 3,000 feet, flying on their belly. Yep. Now, flying on my head and standing up, I only logged 55 seconds per jump, because we're going faster.
Sure.
Because on the moon, it would all be the same, but different wind resistance. If I ball up, I'll fall faster. If I'm flying on my head, I can go 200 miles an hour. If I'm flying splayed out like this, I can maybe go as slow as 105 miles an hour. So there's more factors there.
Yeah.
When I open the parachute, I can spiral, just like an airplane. I can dive it to the ground, or I can float. I can literally float. If I have a really big parachute, I can stay up there for a long time. A tandem skydive, it's going to take from exit to landing just under 10 minutes on average.
Okay.
You get about a minute of that free fall. That's drogue fall because there's a parachute out to slow you down. In tandem skydiving, you have two people creating a hole in the size of one person.
Sure.
So without that drogue chute, and they show you this in the course, they show a regular skydiver and a tandem pair without a drogue, and it's like meow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that drogue chute gives
slows them down,
puts them at regular single person on their belly skydiving speed approximately.
Okay.
So that whole experience, again, just under 10 minutes. It can be shorter because the tandem instructor has to pull it about 5,000 feet. I think 4 or 5 is our hard deck, the tandem pair.
Yeah.
And then once that's open, they can spin that thing around and get you down quick, or they can just sit there and let you enjoy the thing. So the range is very great. So the longest skydive is going to be close to half an hour if you really wanted to. If you open your parachute at 13,000 feet, we call them cross country. Sometimes we go way, way, way past and take your cell phone and some change with you just in case and try to predict those winds so you fly all the way back home. And that's a fun experience, especially at sunset. You're sitting up there and you're making your skydive last 20 minutes. You know?
And number 3, when skydivers come in for a landing, they are also using traffic patterns, just like pilots.
Most often a left-handed pattern.
Okay, same as us.
Unless there's a reason for it to be opposite.
Yep, same.
But left-hand pattern is kind of the most common. And now there are drop zones that say you can land in this direction or that direction. And that's it.
Okay.
So you're forced sometimes to land crosswind. Our pattern is strictly into the wind. So you can discuss it before you get in the plane. It's very rare, but sometimes ground will radio up and say the directions have changed so drastically that you guys have to land in a different direction. But that hardly ever happens. We discuss it before we go up. This is the direction we're going to land. And you're expected to make your pattern based on that.
Number 4. Do skydivers ever accidentally land not where they're supposed to, like an active runway?
A student skydiver landing really near or around an active runway is a thing that could happen. It's a thing that the skydivers are already coming down on that student. So please don't think that there's any kind of laxness. We're taught if you land on an active taxiway or runway, you pick up your shit and you get off right away. You don't sit there waiting around. But it has happened. It's easy to avoid the runway because it's right next to a massive field. Yep. So if you're about to land on the runway, you should be able to land on the field. 5th
and finally is taking a look at the parachute itself and what control inputs are available to the skydiver to manipulate their direction and amount of float time.
There are what I consider to be 4 sets of controls on your rig. Okay, so it's attached all to a ring system here, and there are from the side 2 sets of risers. So that's nylon webbing, and then at the top of each one of those is attached the lines that go up to the parachute. Okay, so you have your front risers. That set of webbing is attached to the front part. Okay, those lines go up and then they split, and they're holding the front half basically of the wing.
Okay,
the wing, remember, is made by 2 layers of fabric that are sewn in the back. Air goes in the front. It's a ram air parachute. So air is allowed in the front. It's got nowhere to go. So the constant motion inflates it to this wing-like shape that keeps it flying. And so it's being constantly inflated.
Huh.
Okay.
All right.
Those lines, again, half are attached to the front, half are attached more to the rear. So you have your front risers, you have your rear risers. Those go up, they split, they're taking care of the other half of that canopy. And then you've seen our handles.
Of course.
We call them toggles for some reason. I don't know where that term, handles is a better word, but we call them toggles. those are attached to the very tail of the of the wing. Okay. This envelope is going to be our wing.
Okay.
Okay. So air forces it open and it's rigid. And when I say rigid, I have a cross brace canopy. I have 2 open holes in the front, then 1 sewed in the middle, and then ribs, so that there's a center cell that it's hard to get the air out of it. It's zero porosity material. So this nylon holds the air in, and it's just really, it can't get out. It's 92, I think, % as rigid as an aluminum aircraft wing. The parachute that I fly.
Yeah. Right.
Canopy is more like 80%. I have a friend who had all these numbers, like they did test and all that. Yeah. But so here's your parachute, and from the side, okay, there's the front, the back, and then those handles will curl the tail.
Okay.
So the parachute's going to have a downward angle like that. It's designed for descent. It's not a paraglider. It's not designed to catch an updraft.
Yep.
So it's always descending. But if I pull on this, curl the tail, now I'm going to float all the way. If I pull it down, it's going to stall, and now it's not inflating anymore. It's going to fold up.
Yep.
To recover, we learn stall recovery. You slowly let it back up, it's just like you learn stall recovery in your aircraft.
Yep.
Now, if I pull on those rear risers, now instead of curling the tail, I'm going to bank the cable. So now my forward speed is still pretty nice and fast, but I've increased my glide ratio 3-4 times instantly just by pulling back, tilting that back. Now I can stall it that way, and a high speed stall is kind of more annoying to recover from, more difficult to recover from than a slow speed stall. But I can bank that parachute and get a longer glide ratio. Now I can also pull down the front and dive. Now in between the front and the rear risers is basically your harness, because they meet and they're attached at one point there. So if I lean this way, I'm going to lean the whole thing, and I'm going to bank this way, and I'm going to start to turn that way. If I give a little bit and curl a bit of that back thing, now there's an air brake on that side. Now I'm really coming around.
Yeah.
Or I can grab the risers, do a rear riser turn, and now I can bank the canopy back and soar and this. And if I want to dive and increase my rate of descent, I can grab the front risers. In fact, we have loops on the front risers to grab so that you can pull down. Now you're diving the canopy.
Now, is that always is that always pulling on the bottom of the parachute, or do you have the ability to change that opening that is inflating?
No, that's basically fixed.
That's fixed.
So
okay.
Those lines are attached to the front edge of the canopy and then inboard a little bit, and those two join to a line that joins to the riser. But no, we don't have any. Just the controls as I've described is all you can do to that thing.
Yeah.
The air going in the front though maintains that wing shape.
Sure.
So I can deform that wing, but I think hot air balloons have those kind of controls where if you can pull something and vent it.
Yeah.
We don't have anything like that.
Okay.
You're just changing the shape of the wing as it is inflated above you.
Yep. I hope you found those few aspects of skydiving as interesting as I did. A huge thank you to AJ for sharing his excitement and insights into the world with us. And also thank you to AJ for those photos and videos as well. You can check him out on YouTube at Ajpen. There's a link in the description to that. If there are aspects of skydiving that we failed to cover that you find interesting as well, leave a comment in the comments down below, and we can all grow and continue learning together. On that, I hope you have a great rest of your day and fly safe.